The silent foundation. The chamber fell silent as High Arbiter Thalen raised all 6 of his crystalline appendages. The gesture carried weight that transcended species. Across the vast circular hall, representatives from 400 worlds waited. Some possessed forms that defied easy description. Others appeared almost familiar, their evolutionary paths having converged on similar solutions to the problems of sentience. All shared one thing in common today: anticipation. Captain Elena Morrison stood in the human observation gallery, a modest alcove positioned at the chamber's edge. The placement was deliberate. For 2.5 centuries, humanity had occupied this space, neither prominent nor entirely forgotten. She had learned to read the room through years of patient observation. Today, something was different. The usual pre-session chatter had been replaced by an uncomfortable tension. Thalen's voice resonated through the translation matrix, reaching every species in their native form of communication. The Council recognizes the motion brought forth by the Varim Empire, seconded by the Kel Syndicate, and supported by 73 member civilizations. The matter concerns species designation human, origin world Earth, and their presence within civilized space. Elena felt her pulse quicken, though her expression remained neutral. She had spent 15 years as humanity's liaison officer. She had witnessed countless debates, territorial disputes, and trade negotiations. This felt different. This felt final. A Varim commander rose from his delegation's platform. His species had evolved on a high-gravity world, resulting in compact, dense bodies covered in metallic gray plating. They had built the galaxy's most formidable military through sheer determination and discipline. Commander Vrax was typical of his kind, direct, efficient, humorless. The Varim Empire has conducted extensive analysis, Vrax began. 250 years ago, humanity was granted limited access to galactic civilization. They were confined to specific zones, assigned modest roles, and monitored carefully. Today, humans occupy positions in every sector of our society. They are present in our infrastructure, our institutions, our very homes. This expansion was never authorized. It occurred through infiltration, not invitation. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Elena noticed several species nodding in agreement. Others appeared uncertain. The Morvani delegation, delicate beings who communicated through bioluminescent patterns, flickered with what she recognized as concern. A Kel Syndicate representative took the floor next. The Kel had dominated galactic commerce for millennia, their mathematical minds capable of calculating economic models that spanned star systems. Their speaker, a tall figure whose body seemed to shift between solid and liquid states, projected data streams into the chamber's central display. The economic evidence is undeniable, the Kel stated. Human participation in galactic markets has increased by 600% over the past century. They control no major corporations, yet they are embedded in the operations of thousands of businesses. They hold no official banking positions, yet they process transactions for half the known worlds. They claim no territory, yet their influence extends to every corner of civilized space. This cannot continue. Elena watched the data scroll past. Every statistic was accurate. Every conclusion was wrong. She considered speaking, then decided against it. They had already made their decision. Her words would only delay the inevitable. High Arbiter Thalen called for testimonies. One by one, species rose to share their concerns. The Draviks complained about human engineers maintaining their orbital platforms. The Quellis objected to human teachers in their educational systems. The Targan expressed alarm that human medical personnel worked in their hospitals. Each testimony followed the same pattern: humans were everywhere, performing functions that seemed harmless individually but appeared threatening collectively. No one mentioned that human engineers had prevented 3 catastrophic platform failures in the last decade alone. No one acknowledged that human teachers had introduced educational methods that doubled Quellis literacy rates. No one recognized that human doctors had developed treatments for diseases that affected dozens of species, including their own. Finally, Thalen called for the vote. The motion before the Council: humanity shall be permanently expelled from civilized space. All human citizens are hereby ordered to vacate non-human territories within 72 standard hours. Human contracts are void. Human property shall be seized. Earth shall be quarantined from galactic contact indefinitely. This is not a temporary restriction. This is permanent removal. Elena felt something cold settle in her chest. 72 hours. They were giving humanity 3 days to abandon everything they had built over 2.5 centuries. 3 days to leave behind homes, relationships, and lives. 3 days to prove that they had always been unwelcome. The vote proceeded quickly. Green lights appeared across the chamber as species after species voted in favor. A few red lights flickered, opposition from smaller civilizations, species that had worked closely with humans and understood what was about to happen. The final count appeared on the central display, 347 in favor, 43 against, 10 abstentions. Thalen turned toward Elena's gallery. Captain Morrison, the Council has spoken. Humanity has 72 hours. I suggest you begin immediately. Elena stood slowly. Every eye in the chamber focused on her. She had prepared for this possibility. Humanity had always known their position was precarious. They had developed contingency plans for every scenario, including this one. The decision is acknowledged, Elena said, her voice carrying clearly despite her species' lack of natural resonance. Humanity will comply with the Council's directive. We will vacate all non-human territories within the specified time frame. We will void all contracts and abandon all property as required. We will return to Earth and remain there as ordered. She paused, allowing her words to settle. I want to thank the Council for the opportunity to serve galactic civilization these past 250 years. We tried our best to be good neighbors. I am sorry we failed to meet your expectations. The simplicity of her response seemed to unsettle the chamber. Several species exchanged glances. Commander Vrax appeared suspicious of her easy compliance. The Kel representative's form rippled with uncertainty. Elena descended from the gallery and walked toward the chamber's exit. Her footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. No one tried to stop her. No one offered sympathy or regret. She passed the Morvani delegation, and their representatives' bioluminescence pulsed in a pattern that meant sorrow. Elena acknowledged it with a slight nod, then continued walking. Outside the chamber, the capital city of Prima stretched before her. Towers of impossible architecture reached toward alien skies. Transportation networks moved millions of beings through arteries of light and force. Gardens filled with flora from 1,000 worlds provided beauty and oxygen in carefully balanced ratios. Prima was the jewel of galactic civilization, a monument to cooperation and shared achievement. Humans had helped build it. Not in obvious ways. Humans held no political power here, owned no ground structures, commanded no public attention. They had worked in maintenance tunnels and control rooms. They had optimized the transportation algorithms and calibrated the atmospheric processes. They had planted many of those gardens and developed the ecological balance equations that kept them thriving. All of that would end in 72 hours. Elena reached the human embassy, a modest building tucked into a commercial district. It had been designed to be unobtrusive, to avoid drawing attention. Humans had learned early that visibility attracted hostility. Better to be helpful than prominent. Inside, her staff waited. 37 people, each representing years of diplomatic service. They looked at her with expressions ranging from shock to resignation. Most had expected this day would come eventually. Some had hoped they were wrong. Protocol Exodus, Elena said simply. The room erupted into controlled chaos. Staff members activated secure communication networks, accessing systems that had been prepared decades ago. Elena moved to her private office and initiated her own series of commands. Within seconds, she was connected to the human coordination network that spanned inhabited space. Thousands of faces appeared in her display, each representing a different human community scattered across the galaxy. Engineers on Varim orbital stations. Teachers in Quellis academies. Doctors in Targan hospitals. agricultural specialists on farming worlds, computer technicians maintaining banking systems, research scientists working in collaborative laboratories. All of them waiting for her signal. "This is Captain Morrison," she began. "The Galactic Council has voted to expel humanity from civilized space. All human citizens are ordered to return to Earth within 72 hours. Protocol Exodus is now active. Begin immediate evacuation procedures. Take nothing that belongs to others. Leave all systems in documented condition. Provide training materials for those who will replace you. We leave peacefully, completely, and permanently." She paused, seeing shock and pain reflected in thousands of faces. Many of these people had been born in space, had never seen Earth. This was their home, these alien worlds and alien friends. Now they were being exiled for the crime of being too helpful. "I know this is hard," Elena continued. "I know many of you have lives here, families here, dreams here. But the decision has been made. We will honor it. We will show them who we are by how we leave. Begin now. You have 72 hours." The display went dark. Elena sat in silence, allowing herself a moment of private grief. Then she opened a second communication channel, this one connecting directly to Earth. A face appeared on her screen, Director James Chen, head of Earth's Galactic Affairs Department. "They did it," Elena said simply. Chen nodded slowly. He was an old man, one of the few who remembered when humanity first made contact with galactic civilization. He had been a young engineer then, filled with excitement about the possibilities. 2.5 centuries of careful diplomacy had taught him caution. "Protocol Exodus?" he asked. "Active. 72 hours. Then we proceed to Phase 2. Elena felt a grim satisfaction. Phase 2 was something the Council knew nothing about. It was humanity's contingency plan, developed over decades by people who understood that acceptance might never come. It was not revenge. It was simply preparation for reality. "The withdrawal begins now," Elena confirmed. "They wanted us gone. They are about to learn what that actually means." Across the galaxy, human citizens began their departure. In maintenance facilities and control centers, in laboratories and hospitals, in schools and farms, humans initiated shutdown procedures. They documented everything carefully, prepared training materials, offered to teach their replacements. Many found no replacements available. The positions humans had filled were often considered too menial for species with advanced civilizations to bother learning. On Varim Orbital Station 7, senior engineer Marcus Webb gathered his team. 15 humans who had maintained the station's critical systems for 20 years. They had prevented dozens of potential catastrophes through vigilant monitoring and quick intervention. The Varim command staff had never acknowledged their work. Now they would inherit it. Marcus requested a meeting with Station Commander Kelvar. The Varim officer arrived looking irritated at the interruption. Marcus presented him with comprehensive documentation, system specifications, maintenance schedules, repair procedures, and emergency protocols. "Everything you need is here," Marcus explained. "The atmospheric processors require calibration every 48 hours. The gravitational stabilizers need monitoring because they tend to drift. The power distribution network has quirks in sectors 4 and 9 that require manual adjustment. The waste recycling system." Kelvar interrupted. "We built these systems. We understand how they function." Marcus nodded slowly. "You built them 200 years ago. We have been maintaining them ever since. Systems age. They develop unexpected behaviors. We have learned those behaviors and compensated for them. This documentation contains all of that knowledge." "We will manage," Kelvar said dismissively. "Varim engineering is superior to human interference." Marcus and his team departed 12 hours later. They took nothing but personal belongings and memories of 2 decades spent keeping people safe. Behind them, the station systems continued functioning normally. For now. Similar scenes played out across civilized space. In Kell banking facilities, human programmers handed over access codes and system documentation. In Targan hospitals, human doctors transferred patient care and provided medical protocols. In Queller schools, human teachers said goodbye to students who did not understand why their favorite instructors were leaving. The Morvani were different. Their delegation had voted against the ban, and their people acted accordingly. On the Morvani homeworld, crowds gathered at spaceports to see human friends depart. Many wept, their bioluminescence pulsing with sorrow. Children who had learned from human teachers brought gifts and letters. Adults who had worked alongside humans for years embraced them and promised to remember. A young Morvani named Lithra approached her human mentor, Dr. Sarah Chen, who had taught xenobiology at the Morvani Research Institute for 15 years. Lithra's light patterns were chaotic with emotion. "Why must you go?" Lithra asked. "You have done nothing wrong. You are our friend." Sarah knelt to match Lithra's height. "The Council has decided that humans should not be part of galactic society. We must respect that decision. But it is not fair. You taught me to think critically, to question assumptions, to search for truth. The Council's decision violates all of those principles." Sarah smiled sadly. "Then remember what I taught you. Use those lessons. Maybe someday things will change. Will you come back?" Sarah looked at the research institute where she had spent the best years of her life. She thought about the discoveries made possible by collaboration between species, the friendships formed through shared curiosity, the future that might have been. "I do not know," she said honestly. "But I will never forget my time here. You and your people showed me what true acceptance looks like." The departures continued. Human ships lifted from spaceports across the galaxy, each carrying citizens whose only crime was being too competent, too helpful, too present. Some ships were intercepted by species begging humans to stay. Others departed in silence, watched by populations that were relieved to see them go. On Prima, Elena supervised the embassy's closure. Documents were archived, systems were powered down, and the building was prepared for whoever would occupy it next. She saved one task for last, a final walk through the city she had called home for 15 years. The streets were crowded with the usual diversity of galactic civilization. Hundreds of species going about their daily lives, conducting business, pursuing dreams, building futures. None of them seemed to notice her. Humans had always been easy to overlook, neither threatening nor impressive by galactic standards. Just another species trying to find their place. Elena reached a small park near the embassy. She had come here often to think, to process the endless frustrations of diplomatic work. A fountain stood at the park center, water flowing in patterns designed by a collaborative team that included 2 human engineers. The plants surrounding it had been selected and arranged by a human botanist who understood which species would thrive together. Even here, in this insignificant corner of an alien city, humans had left their mark. A Kell child approached, its form rippling with curiosity. "Are you a human?" Rit asked. "Yes," Elena replied. "Why are humans leaving?" Elena considered her answer carefully. "Because the Council has decided we should not be here. But my teacher is human. She is nice. I do not want her to leave. I am sorry. Sometimes difficult things happen even when they are not fair." The child's form solidified slightly, indicating confusion. "My parents say humans were dangerous. But my teacher is not dangerous. She helps us learn." Elena knelt down to the child's level. "Remember your teacher. Remember that she was kind. That is important." The child rippled acknowledgement and moved away. Elena watched it go, wondering what kind of galaxy that child would inherit. One where cooperation was celebrated, or one where fear determined policy. She suspected she already knew the answer. The 72 hours passed quickly. As the deadline approached, the last human ships prepared for departure. Elena stood on the bridge of the transport vessel that would carry Prima's human population back to Earth. Below, the city sparkled in alien starlight. She had fought so hard to build bridges between humanity and the galaxy. Now those bridges were burning, and she could only watch. All personnel accounted for, her executive officer reported. "We are ready for departure." Elena took one last look at Prima. "Take us home," she said quietly. The ship rose into the sky, joining hundreds of others in orbit. The human Exodus fleet assembled in formation, a flotilla of vessels carrying millions of people who had only wanted to belong. They had come to the galaxy with hope and optimism. They were leaving with bitter knowledge that hope was not always enough. As the fleet engaged its faster-than-light drives, Elena activated one final transmission. It was brief, addressed to no one in particular, sent on frequencies that every species monitored. "This is Captain Elena Morrison, final message from humanity to the Galactic Council. We came in peace. We served with dedication. We leave with dignity. You wanted to remove us from your civilization. Consider it done. What happens next is your responsibility, not ours. Farewell." The transmission ended. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel. And across the galaxy, in maintenance facilities and control centers, in hospitals and schools, in banks and farms, the systems that humans had maintained began their slow, inevitable decline. The Council had achieved its goal. Humanity was gone. They would soon discover what they had actually removed. The unraveling. The first failures appeared within 18 hours of humanity's departure. They were small things, barely noticeable. A communication relay on the edge of Varim space experienced a 3-second delay. A power distribution node in the Kel commercial district required manual reset. An agricultural monitoring station on Aquelis farming world reported calibration errors. System administrators noted the issues, flagged them for attention, and continued with their normal duties. By the 36th hour, the small things had multiplied. The communication delays had spread to 17 relay stations. Power distribution problems were affecting 6 Kel worlds. Agricultural monitors across 12 farming planets were providing increasingly unreliable data. Engineers attempted corrections, but the problems seemed to shift and evolve faster than solutions could be implemented. Commander Vrax stood in the command center of Varim Orbital Station 7, staring at displays that made no sense. His military training had prepared him for combat, strategy, and crisis management. It had not prepared him for this. The station's atmospheric processors were operating outside normal parameters. Not failing exactly, but drifting toward unstable configurations. "Explain this," he demanded, gesturing at the warning indicators. Station Commander Kelvar consulted the documentation that Marcus Webb had provided. The processors require calibration adjustments every 48 hours to compensate for stellar radiation variations. The human engineers performed these adjustments automatically. Then perform them now. "We are attempting to do so, Commander." The documentation describes the process, but there are variables not fully explained. The humans referenced learned behaviors and drift patterns that do not appear in the technical specifications. "We believe they were making intuitive adjustments based on experience." Vrax felt his armored plates tighten with frustration. "Are you telling me that Varim engineers cannot maintain systems built by Varim civilization?" "We built these systems 2 centuries ago, Commander. They have aged. The humans have been maintaining them for generations. They understood nuances that we never documented because we never expected to need that documentation." Across the station, other systems began manifesting similar issues. The gravitational stabilizers that kept the massive structure from tearing itself apart were indeed drifting, just as Marcus had warned. The waste recycling system was developing efficiency problems. The power network in sectors 4 and 9 was experiencing the quirks that Marcus had mentioned, quirks that the original Varim engineers had never anticipated. Kelvar made a decision he would have considered unthinkable 3 days earlier. Attempt to contact the human engineers who departed. Offer them contracts to return. The communication officer looked up from his station. "Sir, all human communication frequencies are unresponsive. It appears they have severed all contact protocols. Then send a message to Earth directly." Earth has been quarantined by Council Order, Commander. We are forbidden from making contact. Vrax and Kelvar exchanged glances. They had voted for humanity's expulsion. They had celebrated removing what they perceived as a threat. Now they were discovering that the threat had been holding their civilization together. The situation in Kel territories was deteriorating more rapidly. The Kel Syndicate's entire economic structure was built on complex computational systems that process trillions of transactions across hundreds of worlds. The banking networks, trading platforms, and financial algorithms represented the most sophisticated economic machinery in the galaxy. Those systems were collapsing. Senior Financial Coordinator Zephyx watched in horror as error reports flooded her displays. Transaction processing times had increased by 400%. Security protocols were flagging legitimate transactions as fraudulent. Currency exchange calculations were producing inconsistent results. 3 major banks had temporarily frozen all operations rather than risk processing errors. How is this possible? Zephyx demanded. These systems were designed by Kel mathematicians. They are perfect. Her chief systems analyst, a young Kel named Vorix, worked frantically at his terminal. The core systems are functioning correctly. The problem is in the security and optimization layers that were added over the past century. Most of those additions were implemented by human programmers. We hired humans for routine maintenance work. They could not have been essential to core operations. They were not performing maintenance, coordinator. They were performing continuous optimization. The financial networks generate billions of microtransactions that create computational bottlenecks. The humans developed algorithms that predicted these bottlenecks and prevented them. Without those algorithms, the system is drowning in its own complexity. Zephyx felt her form ripple with anxiety. Can we recreate their work? We are attempting to do so. But the human approach to programming is fundamentally different from ours. We design systems logically, mathematically. They design systems intuitively, adaptively. Their code learns and evolves. We do not fully understand how it functions. How long until you can restore full functionality? Vorix's form solidified in a way that indicated deep uncertainty. Months. Perhaps years. And that assumes we can successfully reverse engineer human methods, which is not guaranteed. The Kel Syndicate, which had controlled galactic commerce for millennia, was suddenly unable to process basic financial transactions. Businesses across dozens of worlds found themselves unable to buy, sell, or trade. Economic activity ground to a halt. On agricultural worlds, a different catastrophe was unfolding. The Dravix Collective had established farming operations on 17 planets, feeding billions of beings across their territory. Their success was built on advanced agricultural technology that maximized yields while maintaining soil health. Farm Coordinator Telix stood in a field of what should have been thriving grain. Instead, the plants were yellowing, growth stunted. Similar reports were coming from every farm in the collective. Soil analysis showed increasing acidity, nutrient depletion, and microbial imbalances. The human agronomists warned us this would happen, Telix's assistant said, consulting archived messages. They developed a continuous soil management protocol. They said the intensive farming methods we use would degrade soil quality within weeks without proper intervention. Then implement their protocols. We have tried, Coordinator. The protocols exist, but they require constant adjustment based on weather patterns, crop cycles, and dozens of other variables. The humans were making these adjustments daily. They never documented their decision-making process because they were never asked to do so. Telix looked across fields that were failing in real time. The Dravix had 15 billion citizens depending on food from these farms. If the harvest failed, the consequences would be catastrophic. Contact the humans. Offer them whatever they want to return. Earth is under quarantine, Coordinator. Contact is forbidden. Telix's mandibles clicked with frustration. Then contact the Council. This is an emergency. In the Targan medical facilities, doctors were facing their own crisis. Advanced diagnostic equipment was producing unreliable results. Surgical systems were experiencing calibration errors. Pharmaceutical synthesis units were unable to maintain proper specifications. Chief Medical Director Ravik reviewed the reports with growing alarm. 3 patients had already died due to equipment failures. Dozens more were at risk. The Targan medical system, considered the finest in the galaxy, was collapsing. The human medical technicians maintained calibration on all sensitive equipment, his technical director explained. They performed daily adjustments that compensated for environmental variations, equipment aging, and usage patterns. Without those adjustments, the equipment is drifting out of specification. Can we not simply recalibrate everything? We are attempting to do so, Director. But each piece of equipment requires different adjustments based on its specific history and usage. The humans maintained individual profiles for thousands of devices. They knew each machine's quirks and tendencies. We are trying to recreate decades of accumulated knowledge in a matter of hours. Ravik felt a cold certainty settling over him. How many will die if we cannot restore equipment reliability within the next week? Thousands. Possibly more. The pattern repeated across galactic civilization. In power generation facilities, efficiency was dropping as human-optimized systems lost their careful tuning. In transportation networks, accident rates were increasing as human-monitored safety systems degraded. In waste management systems, processing failures were creating environmental hazards. In communication networks, reliability was deteriorating as human-maintained routing protocols failed. Everywhere, in ways large and small, the infrastructure of galactic civilization was breaking down. High Arbiter Thalen convened an emergency council session. The chamber that had been packed for humanity's expulsion was now filled with panicked representatives demanding solutions. The confident certainty of 3 days ago had been replaced by desperate fear. Order! Thalen commanded, his crystalline appendages raised. We will address these issues systematically. Commander Vrax rose to speak, his armored form carrying none of its usual confidence. The Varim Empire has experienced critical failures in orbital infrastructure, military logistics, and defensive systems. We require immediate human assistance to prevent catastrophic losses. The Kel Syndicate's financial networks are non-functional, Zephix added, her form rippling with barely controlled panic. Galactic commerce has effectively ceased. We are facing economic collapse. Agricultural production is failing across 17 worlds, Telex reported. We face mass starvation within months. Medical facilities are experiencing equipment failures, Ravik said quietly. People are dying. The reports continued. Every species, every world, every system was experiencing failures. The scope of the crisis was staggering. In their effort to remove what they perceived as human infiltration, the Council had removed the foundation of their civilization. A voice cut through the chaos. It belonged to Representative Lithra of the Morvani, the young scientist who had studied under Dr. Sarah Chen. Her bioluminescence pulsed with controlled anger. We warned you, Lithra said. My people voted against this ban. We tried to explain that humans were not infiltrating our civilization. They were supporting it. You did not listen. This is not helpful, Thalen responded sharply. Neither is denying reality. Humans spent 2.5 centuries making themselves indispensable. Not through conquest or manipulation, but through competence and dedication. They took positions no one else wanted. They solved problems no one else could solve. They did this quietly, without demanding recognition or reward. And you expelled them for it. Several representatives began shouting objections. Lithra's bioluminescence flared brighter, silencing them. You called them infiltrators. You accused them of having hidden agendas. The truth is far simpler and far more damning. Humans saw broken things and fixed them. They saw needs and filled them. They saw opportunities to help and took them. While we were congratulating ourselves on our advanced civilizations, humans were doing the actual work of maintaining those civilizations. Now they are gone, and we are discovering that we do not actually know how our own systems function. Thalen's form darkened with anger. The Movani speak out of turn. This council voted to remove humanity, and that decision stands. Then this council has doomed us all, Lithra replied. Because humanity is not coming back to save us this time. As if to punctuate her words, the chamber's lighting flickered. The environmental systems made an unusual sound. Several representatives looked up nervously. Even here, in the heart of galactic government, human maintenance was being missed. Thalen called for proposals. The debate that followed revealed the depth of the crisis. Sending delegations to Earth violated the quarantine they had just imposed. Attempting to recreate human work would take years they did not have. Forcing humans to return would require military action that was morally indefensible and practically impossible given their deteriorating military capabilities. We could offer concessions, suggested a Quellis representative. Apologize for the ban. Invite humans to return as honored partners rather than second-class citizens. That would be admitting we were wrong, Commander Vrax objected. We were wrong, Lithra stated flatly. Everyone in this chamber knows it. The only question is whether we are too proud to admit it before people start dying in large numbers. The debate continued for hours, going nowhere. Every proposed solution ran into political obstacles or practical impossibilities. The council that had united to expel humanity could not agree on how to address the consequences. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, ordinary citizens were beginning to understand what had happened. The news networks, their own systems degrading without human maintenance, reported on the cascading failures. Social unrest was growing as people demanded answers and solutions that their governments could not provide. On Prima, crowds gathered outside the empty human embassy. Some came in anger, still blaming humans for the crisis. Others came in grief, understanding too late what had been lost. A memorial appeared spontaneously, flowers, gifts, and messages left by beings who had known human friends and colleagues. One message, written in shaky script by a Quellis child, read simply, "I miss my teacher. Please come back." On Varim Station 7, Commander Kelvar made a decision. He violated council orders and transmitted a message toward Earth, knowing it would likely go unanswered but unable to live with himself if he did not try. To any human who receives this message. This is Station Commander Kelvar of Varim Orbital Station 7. I wish to apologize. Marcus Webb and his team maintained our station for 20 years. They prevented disasters we never knew were possible. They asked for nothing except the opportunity to do good work. We repaid their service with expulsion and contempt. I was wrong. My people were wrong. If any humans are listening, please know that some of us understand what we have lost. And some of us are deeply, profoundly sorry. The message transmitted into space, joining dozens of similar messages from beings across the galaxy who were finally recognizing what they had done. On Earth, in the Galactic Affairs Department, Director Chen monitored the incoming transmissions. His staff compiled reports on the deteriorating situation in galactic space. The scale of the collapse was exceeding even their worst projections. They are suffering, one analyst observed. Agricultural failures alone will cause mass starvation. Medical equipment failures will kill thousands. Should we respond? Chen considered the question carefully. Humanity had spent 2.5 centuries trying to earn acceptance through service and dedication. It had not been enough. They had been expelled anyway, cast out for being too helpful, too present, too successful. No, Chen said finally. We will monitor the situation. We will document everything. But we will not respond. They made their choice. Now they must live with it. But people are dying. People will die regardless of what we do. If we return now, under crisis conditions, we will be blamed for the crisis. We will be seen as manipulators who caused the problems to force our way back in. The cycle will continue. Better to let them face the full consequences of their decision. And if they come to us? If they ask properly? Then we will discuss it. But on our terms, not theirs. Humanity will never again beg for acceptance. We will offer partnership to those who want it. The rest can solve their own problems. Chen opened a secure channel to Captain Elena Morrison, who had returned to Earth and was adjusting to a world she barely remembered. How long? Elena asked, understanding the question without it being spoken. 3 months until the first major famines. 6 months until medical infrastructure collapse causes mass casualties. 1 year until several civilizations face existential crises. That is our best estimate. And if they ask for help, some already have. Individual messages, violations of council orders. Apologies and pleas from beings who understand what happened. Elena thought about Commander Kelvar's message, about the Quellis child's note, about all the individual relationships that had been destroyed by political decision. We should help them, James. Not the council. Not the civilizations. But the individuals. The ones who treated us as friends. We cannot abandon them. Agreed. But carefully. We offer assistance to those who want partnership, not domination. We build a new structure, separate from the council. Let the old order collapse. We will help create something better from the ruins. Elena smiled for the first time in days. Phase 2. Phase 2, Chen confirmed. The council wanted us gone. They got their wish. Now we build something new. On our terms. With those who are willing to treat us as equals. Across the galaxy, galactic civilization continued its slow collapse. Systems failed. People suffered. The mighty civilizations that had ruled for millennia discovered they had built their greatness on a foundation they never acknowledged or appreciated. Some species recognized their mistake and began reaching out to humanity, seeking partnership rather than demanding service. Others remained proud, insisting they would solve their problems without human assistance. A few blamed humans for the crisis, claiming the failures were deliberate sabotage rather than the natural consequence of removing essential infrastructure support. On the Morvani homeworld, Dr. Sarah Chen received a message from her former student Lithra. It was simple and direct: we want partnership. We want friendship. We want to build something better together. Will you come back? Sarah looked out at Earth's sky, so different from the alien stars she had called home for 15 years. She thought about the research left unfinished, the students she had abandoned, the friendships that had been severed by political decree. She composed her response carefully: yes. Not because you need us. Because we choose to be partners. On equal terms. With mutual respect. If you can accept that, I will return. The response came within hours: we accept. Welcome home. It was a small beginning. One species, one scientist, one partnership rebuilt from the ruins. But it was a beginning nonetheless. The galaxy had tried to erase humanity. They had discovered too late that humanity had become woven into the fabric of galactic civilization so completely that removing them tore everything apart. Some would learn from this. Some would not. But humanity would never again beg for acceptance. They would offer partnership to those who valued it. The rest could face the darkness alone. The council had gotten exactly what they asked for. Humanity was gone. And the galaxy was learning what that actually meant.